Hello, everybody. I'm Raina from Blue Cypress Books, and welcome to Book Banter. Tonight, we are going to be talking to Bonnie Tomlinson. She is the author of Stop Buying Bins, which is a no-brainer, but also so hard. Oh my gosh. Bonnie spent years as a professional organizer, and she's taken all of that information that she learned along with her own personality traits and put it into this book to help us learn to declutter and deorganize our lives. Organize our lives. And this is the first in a series. So I'm excited to talk to her not only about this book, but about her future plans to help all of us. If you have any questions during the event, type them in the comments and we will answer them in real time. And without further ado, hi, Bonnie.
Hi, Raina. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for joining me. This is going to be super exciting because I love organizing, but it feels like every couple of months I just like fall down on the job.
Yeah, it happens. It happens to the best of us.
Right?
Yes.
So tell me about like what got you here. You spent time as a professional organizer? Like,
Yes.
What is that? Just question mark that.
So I was working for a decorator at the time, and I was going into people's homes. And when they were asking to have their living room redone because they didn't like the way it looked, it had nothing to do with needing new furniture, new drapes. It had more to do with the fact that they just had too much clutter and they really needed to be organized. So I took that premise, went out on my own, started my own firm, and just made it about organizing. And I've been in some houses. I'll just leave it at that.
Well, one of my favorite parts of your book is there's a huge section of case studies, and it's nice, like it's kind of this voyeuristic thing to see inside some of these places that you've been. And that's obvious, that goes back to like, we love these TV shows, hoarders and things
Right.
like that. But then also, like, how do you implement these downsizing ideas into this house that you're just like, wow, how do we even get here?
Yeah. Well, there are so many different, like I try to break it up in the book by chapters based on different clients and the reasons they got where they were. Some people, it was circumstance, right? I inherited all of my grandmother's things and then I had my own, and that was one way. Or I am not happy with my life, so I like to shop to make myself feel better. There are all different ways that people accumulate things, and it's really about the downsizing process starts from there. We need to know why you do this, and then, or how you got here, and then work backwards. How can we change that so you don't keep doing it? And then just get rid of things. Ask yourself some important questions. Yes.
So what's one of those important questions? You have to give away all your secrets.
All the secrets. So there are certainly other professionals in this field who are far more famous than I am. And one of their catchphrases is, does it spark joy? Yes, that is an excellent question to ask. But, potholders don't necessarily spark joy, but you need them. So there are things that you can ask yourself for the excess. I'm not talking about the things you need or the things you use. If you're using a closet full of clothes, by all means, keep a closet full of clothes. But we know that there are lots of things that aren't getting used. And there are ways to kind of train yourself. Try wearing them in rotation. And if you consistently don't wear that one item, it has to go. Or, I say in the first chapter, and I make it about myself, incentive clothes don't help. Having sizes that are way too small for you just make you depressed every time you open the closet. Have a closet full of clothes that you can actually wear. So there are different techniques depending on why it is that people have stuff.
So one of my little stories that happened recently when I was reading your book, we're going to Iceland in July.
Okay.
So I haven't pulled my suitcase, my actual big like hard shell suitcase out in some time. And I
Okay.
pulled that out and I thought, what, there's not gonna be anything in here. I open it up and there's stuff in there.
Like
But
clothes from your last trip?
it's not clothes from the last trip. It's clothes that I want, think I might use sometime, and who knows when that will maybe never be.
Mhm.
And I thought, oh, I'll just keep them all in the suitcase because I haven't used this
Sure.
suitcase in a while. And now I'm faced with this, like, okay, well, clearly I didn't even really know they were in there. And like as soon as you see it again, you go, oh yeah. But like if you had asked me where it was, I don't even know if I would have, these skirts that I
Yes.
might wear again one day. Like,
Right.
what is that? And so I got rid of it.
Oh, I'm so proud of you.
But I don't know that I would have 3 weeks ago.
I am so glad. I am so glad. I mean, that's where we are. I'm not trying to tell anyone that you need to get rid of everything. I mean, if you saw my house, I have stuff. I have a lot of collections. I have a lot of clothes, what have you. But I make sure that everything I own, I'm using or enjoying in some way. There's very little hidden away in a closet.
Mhm.
And I think that's the point. I think there are far too many things that we all hold on to because we have to. And it's not really giving us anything. It's not doing anything but taking up space. So those clothes in your suitcase, someone could have gone in there an hour before you and got rid of them and you wouldn't have even noticed.
Yeah, I
So,
never would have known. Maybe at some point, if somebody was like, "Oh, didn't you have that skirt?" Who's gonna do that though? I don't know who
yeah.
would do that. But let's say it's the most magical friend who remembers from
Right.
5 years ago I had this skirt. Um, I
But
would,
even still,
yeah, I
you may
don't
have
know what
said,
happened to it.
yeah,
Yeah,
right. Oh, I don't know. I must have given it away. Right. You wouldn't have even thought about it.
yeah. I was like, I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah.
I should go through my closet, maybe. I don't know. So what brought you from like being a professional organizer to writing this book? Like, why did you want to write this book for yourself?
It's actually twofold. I've always wanted to write. I've always had a book in me. There's at least 14 books in various stages of completion around the house. When I set out, I went to a writer's conference.
Mhm.
And just to kind of give me a kickstart on what it is that went into writing a book. And I realized that if I didn't take the momentum of this weekend home with me, I wasn't gonna do it. And this was the book that was the farthest along. So it started out as a book about organizing. But every chapter that I was writing, I was realizing that most of the instructions were based on how to downsize because that is the first step to organizing.
Mhm.
I use the phrase, if you have more stuff than space, something has to go. So I just decided to make it about downsizing because it was filling up most of the chapters. And it really was its own book. So I'm glad that it happened that way.
Um, that like the downsizing idea is very true. But why do you think we don't talk about that as much? Like we talk about it when someone passes, for example.
Sure.
Or maybe when someone's retiring, oh, they have to downsize.
Downsize,
We talk
right.
about that.
Right.
But other than in those contexts, we always try to organize or your life. Why do you think it is we don't talk about that step first?
I think it has a lot to do with our consumerist culture. We like to buy things. Buying things make us feel good on several levels. One, we have the money or not, but we have the means to purchase something, and having money is one of those things that makes us feel better about ourselves. accumulating things. If you have, whoever dies with the most toys wins, right? So
Right.
like that is adding to this idea that having more is better. But we consume beyond our means. I mean, it happens with a lot of things in our lives, food included. We consume more than we actually need. And what I'm trying to do is not tell people that they can't have things, but that be reasonable with what it is you're bringing into your home, because there's a tipping point where you're valuing your things more than yourself. They're taking up too much of your space. They're taking up energy that's around you. Someone once explained it to me, a science person. I may have been one of the teachers at my daughter's school. Energy, living things produce energy. People, plants, animals, inanimate objects, like all the stuff we purchase at Target, absorbs energy. So literally, the stuff in our homes is sucking the energy out of us. The more we have, the more energy we've lost for ourselves. Mm-hmm. It's not giving us back anything. And that's all I'm trying to say. If you have it and you have to have it, then love it, see it, use it. But don't put it in a bin and stick it in the closet, because that's not doing anything.
Right. I love the whole, your overarching concept in this book is really an idea. It's a mindset change.
Yes.
I love the title, Stop Buying Bins, and that's important, but it's like, that's a symptom.
Yes.
Of the mindset we have.
Mm-hmm.
And you really do talk about that a lot in this book, and I appreciate that, because he keeps getting reiterated, like a little bit here and there. It's not preachy. It's just like, here's a little bit, here's a little bit, here's a little bit.
Thank you.
Along, So good job.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so we have a question.
Yes.
Linda says,
hi, Linda.
I have stuff from my parents, stuff from my house where I raised two fantastic children, and I need to downsize myself and not leave too much to them, not leave to them. Where to start?
Where to start? Always start small. Always start with what you can accomplish, because then you feel like you've accomplished something. It gives you the motivation to move on to the next step. But always start small and keep it small. I keep, I think it's chapter 6, the bachelor pad, that make a room into a grid. And I'm just going to do this section right now. And when I accomplish that section, if I have the energy, I can keep going. But right now, I just want to complete this section. It's easy enough to start, like in, I think it's chapter 4. Yes, chapter 4, where just take it at layers. So you've accumulated a lot of things that you inherited. Okay. How much of it do you really want? Anything that you don't want, that you have no use for, right off the bat, get rid of, in any way that means. Whether you're selling it or giving it to Goodwill, whatever it is, to get it out of your house. It's not serving you. But again, either you're doing it layers or you're doing it by grid. You're still starting small and you're chipping away at it. And over time, it's finished, but you have to start somewhere. So.
And I found with things, like if you have a deadline, if you are retiring in a year.
Yes, certainly.
Right, you can look at your house, go, okay, well, I need to do a quarter of every room every week. For example, like figure out what that is. And then like you said, break it down, right? You eat an elephant one bite at a time.
That's right. Right. That is correct. Yes. Yes.
And that's, again, with this overarching idea, that concept is useful in so many areas of your life.
Yes.
Anytime I have gone through and really like like decluttered and downside, just let go of something,
Mhm.
I find that space is so much lighter.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I sometimes equate it to, well, you're in retail, right? So you have a
Yep.
store. Every square inch of your store has to pay you back.
Mhm.
So you don't want to clutter your store with stuff that's not for sale or not paying you back in some way. And why should it be any different for your home? If this is taking up space in your home, this box, this bin, this basket of clothes that I've never worn, then it's not paying you back in any way. It's taking up square footage, not paying rent. It doesn't make sense. If you want it to make sense, go through it, find homes for it, but just shoving things in corners is not the answer, because then you're not using all of it. You're not really taking advantage of everything.
That I read a book years and years ago, and I could not tell you the name of it at the moment, but it was about organizing and downsizing and such. And one of the things that I took away from that book too was like, let's say you do have things and you're like, oh, when am I going to use this? It's a candle. When am I going to use this? Oh, I would burn it, but I'm saving it for that moment. Two things. One, burn it.
Yep.
Because who cares? Buy a new candle in 6 months.
Right.
And two, if it's something that you're not sure you don't want to part with, put it in a box, put a date on the box, and go back and be honest with yourself at the end of that, like 6 months.
Oh, that's actually a good idea. I've never used that, but yeah, giving yourself that deadline again, that idea that if I haven't used it by this point, yeah.
Right. And it's just like a lot of things that you are holding on to where you go, oh, I might need that. Oh, I
might need that is a powerful, the thing is that if you're not using it, okay, you have something, I might use it. We'll use it now. Just use it. Just dive right in, take advantage of it. If you are going to save it for an occasion, then use it on that occasion. But if you're just going to save it for the might use, it's now money that's wasted. That's another thing. We can talk about this in terms of money instead of terms of space. It's actually money that you might as well just have $4 sitting there on the counter, because that's whatever you purchased at the drugstore is worth, and it's now sitting there in money that's already used. So that idea that like, well, I can't just give it away. It's new. I haven't used it. Well, but you've already wasted the money. So give it some purpose. So all these questions, it's very hard to, it's easy for someone that I'm sitting across the table from in a first meeting to say to me, I can't do this. I won't do this. I have strong feelings about that. But the more questions you ask, the more they realize that, yeah, that's why am I holding on to that? So little story. A friend of mine from college told a friend of his from high school about my book. She bought it. She got in touch with him and said, I must meet this person. So he set up a phone conversation. She said to me, I can't stay focused enough to work through organizing. I said, okay, but you can be focused for 20 minutes, because that's really all you need to make a jump start into any of these projects. I said, give me one of the examples of things you have to do.
Yeah.
I have these boxes in my garage. They're filled with things that aren't even mine. They're friends I have friends that asked me to store things for them. Wow. I said, how long have they been there? Oh, years. She says, okay, you need to call those friends as soon as they get off the phone and tell them to come and pick up their stuff, or you're putting it out with the garbage this week.
Right.
She said, okay. I'm like, don't just say yes, like do it. She called those friends. One, she dropped the boxes off. They're like, oh my gosh, I completely forgot you had them. She dropped them off. Another was like, oh, I don't need them. you can, donate them or give them away, whatever. She did that. Literally by the end of the day, she had gotten rid of all of those boxes. And I said, see? See how easy it is? You just need to do it 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And now she's got this open space in her garage and she's like, oh, okay, now I need to get rid of this. I'm like, all right, what is the holding you back from this? Well, I'd like to bring it in the house, but it's broken. Okay, great. These are the numbers of people that can fix it, get it taken care of, bring it in your house. And now it's in her house. And now she can fit a car in her garage.
Wow. That's amazing.
It's huge. And it's huge, but it's so tiny. The concept is it's just that, this is going to be painful to do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not.
It's going to be fine.
It's going to be fine. Worst case scenario, you're left in the same situation. It's not going to get worse.
Right. Worst case is you still have the boxes. I suppose someone could be upset that like their friend might be upset with them, but they've been in your house for years. Like those friends are not okay if they're
exactly. And at one point I'm like, really? These are your friends? Just joking. And she's like, well, I really haven't talked to them in a while. I'm like, yeah, clearly, because you still have their stuff and they don't even know, or they don't even care. See, so like she was being the good friend, storing them, and they had already forgotten about them. So
when I think that same idea holds some of us back from getting rid of stuff that's been passed down to us. Too.
Absolutely.
And this kind of ties into something that Linda said as well. She's got stuff that's been passed from her parents.
Yeah.
And like we make this thing up where like, oh, well, grandma would have wanted us to have that. Or, grandma really liked it. Great. Yeah. Grandma really liked it. And that was great for grandma.
Exactly.
Like, do I like it? Does my son like it?
Right.
I might hold it for him. But if neither one of us are into it.
Exactly.
Are we holding it for this burden of like the friendship? We are friends. We agreed to this thing. And so
I think this is also in chapter 4. I think I say something to the effect.
The title of chapter 4 is absolutely amazing. And I'm going to find it and read it. Okay. Because that puts it all. It says a lot of it. Preserve grandma's legacy, not her toilet paper cozy. Grandma did not care about that thing. Even though you could have heard her say 20 times, I like that new toilet paper cozy I got. Okay, but not in a pass it down my generation upon generation has to keep this in their life.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's okay. Here's the truth, I say, page 65. I'd hate to think that one day my future granddaughter will be holding on to a coffee mug I own just because it was in my house when I passed. Like just because I owned it doesn't mean you have to keep it. Does it have special meaning to you? Is it something you recall that is a favorite of our experience together? Is there something of value that you actually want? I have a lot of my grandmother's furniture, but not all of it, because some of it I don't want. So, and you don't want to be remembered. And this goes to a topic that I bring up in this next book I'm writing. You don't want to be remembered for the burden you're leaving behind. Mm-hmm. You want to be remembered for the good things. And if those don't have anything to do with the stuff in my house, then don't keep any of it. I just want to be remembered in the best way, not for, now we got to clean out grandma's house.
Yeah. And that happens so often.
Yeah.
You end up with like dumpsters full.
Yeah.
No, like that happened recently in my life. We had to clear out my mother-in-law's house and it was dumpsters. Yeah. And that's never something that I think anybody wants.
No.
To think not only of their stuff, the survivors think, that I wouldn't want them to throw away all my stuff. But I don't think that's what the person thinks. I don't want you to have to throw away all my stuff. That's what I think anyway. I don't want my son to have to do that.
Yes.
Because it is hard. Not only the decisions,
hard.
but like every box of stuff you take out to the dumpster, you're like,
Yeah.
oh gosh, I'm throwing
Yeah,
all
no,
my
it's physically
grandma items
draining.
out. It's
Yeah.
like, it's a thing. So the downsizing now is
Mm-hmm.
so important. And if the earlier in your life you start that idea, because again, back to the idea and the
Yes.
overarching, thought process, the earlier in your life that you get that started, the easier that is by the time
Yes.
get to the end.
Right.
Hopefully, in theory, you've only got stuff you use and stuff you truly care about. So when someone
Exactly.
walks into that space, they know you like this, like you care about this thing.
Right. Right.
Anyway, I think it's just brilliant. And
Thank you. Thank you.
So you're working on this next book, and the next book is
Organizing. It is called, do you want the title?
Sure, yeah.
The working title
I'm ready.
is Handbook for the Organizationally Impaired.
Like that.
Subtitle, A Home Organizer's Guide to Getting Your Act Together. And in it, again, the chapters are broken out into individual stories of different clients. And it really is a stripping of the room. Each chapter will be a different room, stripping of the room and rebuilding it in a way that is built for efficiency based on what the room is for. So the first chapter is about a bathroom. And, a bathroom is meant to be clean. It is for hygienic purposes. So keep it simple. Don't over decorate. Don't over, there's a lot. If you're not using that product from 1983 that didn't work on your pimples when you were a teenager, you probably don't need to keep that tube. You can get rid of it. And then how to organize it once you have just the essentials, and organizing for efficiency and where you're using it, because it is a bathroom, it's a functioning room. So I don't need to store my toothbrush with the toilet paper. I need it at the sink, that kind of thing, which you'd think was easy, except if you read chapter 6 in this book, The Bachelor had coffee mugs in his bathroom. So that's, another whole story. But, and then I wrap it up with how to keep it clean, how to maintain it, with some tricks. So it'll be interesting. I got my first chapter back from the editor and she loved it. So Yay. I got the green light. We're going to keep going.
Awesome. I've watched some organizational TV shows.
Yes.
And with this this concept of keeping things where you use it.
Yes.
I have been reorganized, not my entire kitchen, but like areas of my kitchen 2 or 3 times, because where I thought I would just turn around and they would be there, turns out I'm still going down here, or I'm still like over there. And that was that whole process was a little bit sobering, because I watched the TV show. I'm like, yeah, I got this. I'm going to do it. It all makes sense. Here we go. Moved everything around. And then like the next week I realized I can't, I'm not using it.
It has to be lifestyle sensitive. And that I talk about in this book. I'm talking about it in the next one. I can make a space any way I want to, but if it's not the way the client lives, then there's no way they're going to be able to maintain it. So, if you want your coffee maker in the bathroom, I'm going to try and dissuade you from that. But ultimately, if that's where you want it, then we're going to make it work somehow. In in a kitchen, for example, if I like to have the mugs above the coffee maker, for me, it makes sense. And so I will always try to talk a client through, this is where I'm going to set it up and why. If a week later, I usually go back, or 2 weeks later, to see how is it all working out for you. Mm-hmm. But they're like, I don't like making my coffee here because it's too far from the sink to fill the pot, or it's, I keep my coffee in the pantry, and whatever the reason is.
Right.
You can rework it.
Mhm.
It has to work for the lifestyle of the person, but there's always going to be a way to keep it organized. There's always going to be a way to keep a lifestyle system in place so that you can keep it neat.
Okay, I have a question about photographs.
Yikes.
Yeah, that I sort of came up with on the fly just now. Because we have two photo issues really that I see. Is like we have a whole generation upon generation of physical paper,
Yes.
photographs that have been passed down, or even, like I have some from I'm not that old,
Sure.
or I'm old enough to have had them.
Right.
So there's this whole section of my early life that is all paper photographs. And now we have a billion digital photos. So
Yes.
the photo album to display like ratio, like what is, how many of these how do you get people to let them go?
Oh, goodness. It is such a huge thing because not only is it en masse, and if it hasn't been organized to this point, you've lost generations of knowledge of what it is you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
But photos are also sentimental. So, and they're a touchstone to a past. It's a personal history or it's a family history. And so it's very hard to let go.
Mm.
I would dissuade anyone from letting go unless they knew that it was truly useless. So what falls into that category? Here's your first layer of getting rid of stuff. Duplicates. Not too long ago, oh gosh, I'm going to date myself, but you used to take your film canisters to that little drive-through photo mat place, drop it off, and 2 weeks later you got back 2 copies of every picture because you checked the box that said free second set. Sure, I'll take a free second set. Why? I have no idea. You also didn't know what you were going to get. So on a roll of 24, you may have gotten 4 pictures that were decent. The rest were blurry, or you didn't get what you wanted, whatever. So now you have doubles of garbage pictures. Unless you were the kind of person who took those pictures and threw them away immediately, you're going to have doubles of pictures, and you're going to have pictures that are not good. They're just not good photos. Yeah. You might as well pitch those, right? You're not using them in the box that they're in. You're not going to use 2 of them, and they're blurry. And if it's not of something, there's no point in my opinion. Mm-hmm. I have to preface this because this is a tight one. This is a very personal one. I would endeavor to find someone who could trace back some of the pictures that are older. Mm-hmm. Certainly anything that is a portrait or of a specific place, meaning a home. But, great grandma's camping trip to Yellowstone, and it's just a picture of a campsite that could be anywhere, and you only know that it's Yellowstone because she wrote on the back. Do you want to keep that? That's now up to your opinion. Is it something that you want to save? It's a really hard process. And unless the person before you has made the commitment to organize, you are really left with just decisions because there's no right answer, right? I've been in hundreds of used bookstores that all have boxes of old photographs. Right? I'm sure there's a box of old photographs at Blue Cypress.
Well, and we take in, we are new and used.
Yeah.
So people bring us secondhand books 5 days a week. Sometimes they try more days a week than that.
Yeah.
And there will be, we find photographs, we find postcards, we find receipts, we find, all kinds of stuff in books that, and then it's just like, well, because we're doing the same thing. Right, we're going to do it under the guise of it being a business, and isn't that cute? But the truth is, there are a couple of not big boxes, but photo box, shoe box
Yeah,
type
yeah.
boxes with stuff in them
Yep.
that we found. And sometimes we make a cute Instagram post with it, and that's fun,
Right,
and it gets likes. But like beyond that, what do we really do with that stuff? And it's the
right.
same thing at home.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, some bookstores will put them all in a box and just be like, $1 a piece or 3 for $1, whatever, just to get rid of them. And people do like them. They're entertaining. But I just hope that in my family, we've done enough with our photographs. I know that I printed out every photo of my daughter. I have an only child,
Hmm.
until 2010. I don't know. I just made a mark in the sand and said, I'm not printing any more pictures. And now everything is just stored online. But it's such a tough call because I know that I would love to have pictures of my grandmother when she was a little girl,
Hmm.
or, anything like that. But I don't know where it is. I don't know who has it. And if I got it, I wouldn't know how to date it or even know that it was her.
Right.
I mean, it could have been somebody
Maybe.
else completely.
That happens so often too. Even if you have a group of pictures, these two faces, you'll look at this one and go, wait, is it the same? Is
Yeah,
that
I
the
mean,
same
those old black and white pictures with a certain kind of clothing,
Yes,
it could be
sometimes.
anybody. Yeah.
Really? And especially if it's family too, you're like, oh, that looks like grandpa, but it could be Uncle Ted. Oh, no, like it's hard.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you this,
Yes.
because what are your thoughts on taking those physical photographs and maybe like scanning them in and then letting go of those physical photographs? Like you still have it and it's cluttering in a different way now.
Uh-huh. I would prefer them in paper.
Ooh.
Yeah. This is not typical me. But there is something to be said, okay, in your imagination, the idea of an attic where you find a trunk full of magical old stuff is
Yes.
is kind of fun. So like the idea of a box, managed box of old photographs that you can't decipher when and where and who, just thrown together, is kind of a fun thing to go through. Like, that I have some kind of connection to these pictures, so I'll keep them. And they're just random in a box is kind of fun, question mark?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I agree with you. I agree.
No, I mean, and I think that, my daughter and her passing it down would have the same feeling, like, this is a family history box. And we don't know what anything is in here, but it's us. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. And that kind of goes back to a thing too, where you're like, does it, is it giving energy back to you?
Yes. Yes.
And so let's say you start with 6 boxes of random paperwork and pictures and stuff that have been passed down. If you can cut that in half,
absolutely,
you're starting with the duplicates and the blurry stuff, or pieces of paper. You're like, I don't even know who this is. Why do I have a deed to something from a long time ago? I don't need that.
Sure.
Like all of those types of things. Then if you've got these boxes, now at least these are people you pretty much know who they are, or
sure.
This is definitely grandma, so you are aware of who, you knew them in real life and those types of things. It's still a fun box to open up.
It is. I think so too. Yeah, I agree.
But you've managed it. Like you were saying, to manage a well-managed.
Yes. Right. And it's also the box itself, right? I wouldn't use cardboard. I might even put it in something that was, old worldly, leather trunk kind of thing. So it was an actual kind of treasure. Just so that you can actually preserve it. Because that's another whole thing. A lot of people are holding on to things and they're not holding on to them in the right way. It's like having a wedding dress in your closet. It's going to yellow. The elastic will get brittle. There's a million things. You have to preserve it if you want to keep it. So yeah, just like that, I would put that I put the thought into it.
Well, and you're talking about too, even though this is stop buying bins, let's say you have pared it down to like a trunk size of photos and such. This might be an opportunity to employ retail therapy that is with a purpose, right?
Yes.
You envision that trunk, but you don't have one of those. Okay.
Right.
It's not an impulse purchase. This isn't something that's just filling a void in your life. You now have a vision. Go
Absolutely.
thrifting, right?
I love that. Thrifting is my first line of defense in all things. If I need a new shirt, a new dresser, my first line of defense is secondhand, just because it's already there, right? Give it a second life. I mean, that's what you hope for, the things you give away. You know, these 2 chairs that belong to this table, I want to keep the table, but I don't want the chairs. You hope those chairs make it into someone's home that loves them.
Exactly.
So, I mean, that kind of trunk, I would be at my Saturday morning haunt. I'm there every Saturday, checking out what's new. Yeah.
What I encourage everybody to, like, when you think of a thrift store or secondhand or something, you think of Goodwill, you think of Salvation Army, you think of these ones that have this big national attention that have been around for a long time. But I encourage you to, like, Google it. Like, Google your
absolutely
thrift, secondhand, repurposed. Like, there's a place here that takes furniture and just repaints it usually. I mean, sometimes they'll do something fancy and that'll be worth a little bit more money, you know, that's up over in the corner. But they'll just like sort of give it a new paint job, and they'll post before and afters on their Instagram, and it's like, I don't know that I would have bought this if I walked in and it was just kind of like, it didn't look as good.
Right.
They literally just painted it, and yes, they charge $5 or $10 more for it. That is true, but I will buy that because it looks, oh my gosh, it's so fresh. Oh, and it's blue. Isn't that different and unique and whatever?
Which is a whole freedom that we have embraced in, I'd say I've watched this happen in the last 15 years. Before that, people didn't want to do that to old furniture because it would devalue it. But if it was sitting in a secondhand store and nobody was buying it, it has no value. If you want to take that cherry wood and paint it purple with green polka dots, go for it. If you're going to use it, if you're going to give it a second life and you're going to love it. Otherwise, it doesn't have any value because you don't want to ruin it. It's a strange way of looking at it. Just paint it.
True. Yeah. You need to do one of 2 things. Either find an antique dealer and sell it to them, or paint it and bring it inside your house. Like, a lot of our stuff ended up like in my mom's garage. So in my mind, it's always like, okay, we need to do something with this, pull it into the house, or like literally get rid of it.
Yes.
And you're so right, because it's just sitting in the garage rotting. So I need to make that $100 that the antique dealer is going to give me, or whatever. Or just paint it to match the bedroom and bring it inside.
That's right.
And I think too, Grandma would have liked that better. You know what I mean? Like, Grandma
I want to believe that Grandma would want you to make it work for you. Yeah. I mean, she wouldn't want you to hold on to anything that she didn't think you wanted.
Exactly. Why not always Grandma? Why is
Grandma's cool like that?
Exactly. I love it. I love that. All right. Speaking of cool, before we go, because we're at like 45.
Okay.
But I am going to mention your background, which I'm in love with.
Thank you.
You have the perfect like symmetry with your shelving and this window that's got this little like nook in it. I'm envious of your.
Thank you. I didn't do it. I bought the house because of it.
I love it.
No, the house has 3 sides of these 3-story windows. And that was the selling point completely for me. In fact, when I was looking to buy a house in this town, because I knew I wanted to live in Amherst, I wanted to come back to Amherst, which is where I went to college. I was looking in different neighborhoods and found this neighborhood I didn't know existed. I spoke to my realtor up here and I said, I only want to live in this neighborhood. She's like, there's nothing for sale. I said, send out an email to everyone who lives there and say, I have a buyer who wants to sell their house. And one person said, we were considering it, but we haven't done anything to it. And my realtor's like, she's a decorator. She doesn't care what you've done to it. She just wants to be in the neighborhood. And they sold me their house.
Wow. That is amazing. And
Yes.
like, just, okay. Obviously you're a just do it kind of person, because
For the most
like,
part, yes.
I mean, everybody's probably got their things that it's hard for them to do, but the idea, just grid it off and just do it. Set a time.
If
you
I
got
am
15 minutes,
obsessed
do it.
with something,
You're
like I said before we started talking, and I was obsessed with like, am I in the right light? I can't get over it. I can't until it's done. So yes, I wanted to live here. That was the end of the story.
Well, and you ended up with this. I'm assuming the rest of the house is amazing based on these windows, solely based on this one. The whole rest of the place could just be falling apart for all I know. But based on your love of like decluttering and downsizing and this window alone, I imagine it to be a beautiful place.
Thank you. I'm very, very lucky. This was, the cosmos were working in my favor. Everything aligned.
So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I had so much fun.
Absolutely.
This was a great conversation. I was worried. I was nervous, but no, it was good.
Well, and we had never really spoken before. So when, we sent those emails and you're like, I don't know, can we fill the time? I'm like, yeah, it's going to be fine. But then when we actually talked on the phone for a few minutes, like 2 minutes in, I was like, this is going to be fine.
Yeah.
Like in my mind, I was like, I already know.
Right.
And then I was like, I should probably, I'm just sitting in the back room supposed to be working. I should probably wrap this up. And it had been like 22 minutes. I'm like, we got this.
Yeah. No, I was really worried that we were going to not be able to fill the hour, but clearly that's not an issue. So.
Yeah. And I love Book Banter for this reason. This is like my favorite part of Book Banter personally. I get to talk to you and meet you. And yes, it's partially an interview, but like if we ran into each other, I would be like, oh my gosh.
Absolutely.
Hug and like.
Absolutely. Without question. So, yes.
It's great. It was great talking to you.
It was really great talking to you too, Raina. Thank you so much for setting this up. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thank you to everyone who's watching. I can see you. We put the link in the comments. You can buy Bonnie's book right through that link, and we will get it to you anywhere in the world. So,
yay!
Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you so much.